Who's driving? Excellent question. This is Two Blind Crew. Yeah. Two Blind Crew. Two Blind Crew.
Daddy, what's wrong with you?
Who's driving? I don't know. We're going to find out. This is Two Blind Crew. I'm Jeff.
And I am Greg.
Greg McMuffin. So
Howdy.
this was your idea for a show title. Before we scare the people, why don't you explain the Who's Driving?
Who's driving? Well, we decided that we would do some discussion on the book of Romans chapter 8. And a lot of that in my mind is about who's going to be in control of your decisions, who's going to be in control of how you act and how you think and how you feel. And so what better metaphor than a bunch of blind guys in a car letting somebody else drive them? So there you go.
Yeah, it makes sense now that you explain. And speaking of making sense, I have to explain to the good people watching why I'm decked out in camo and a camo bandana. See, I was having a bad hair day, and we never know. We're men of great faith, and we don't know when the healing is coming. And I didn't want Greg's first sight to be a horrible hairdo on my head, so I decided to camo it so he can't see it.
Talking about hair, you know what I about did today? I thought it would be really good. It was kind of like a point-counterpoint thing.
Uh-huh.
I had a beard up until today, and I got out on the porch, and I almost just cut half of it off, and I would sit on this side and make a statement, and then I would switch sides, and I'd have hair on the other one.
Yeah, the statement is 20 more milligrams. It'll be okay. You're almost there, pal.
Just 20 more.
So,
That's all I'm...
who's driving? And you as well probably have the thought from time to time when life goes wrong or seems to be going wrong. And in our case, it would be easy to be tempted into thinking life is unfair, life stinks, why me, and all of the above, and play the blame game and be grumpy old men. And clearly you guys watched more than 2 videos. We are anything but grumpy old men. Old maybe, but not
Old.
getting there anyway.
Real old.
But I for one kind of came to the realization a long time ago that there must be purpose in all of this suffering, headaches that people like us face, and that I determined a long time ago. That's why I started writing books and getting into ministry and things like that, because I decided, I'm not going through all of this for nothing. And it's not just going to be for me. Somebody's going to get something out of this. And I know we've talked quite a bit about it. I know you feel pretty similarly. So hence, it was your idea. We should talk about the Romans chapter 8 thing and talk about perseverance and all things work together for good.
Yeah, and
Eventually.
It's amazing how when people have issues... it can be anything, overeating, spending too much money, a health issue, a handicap, cancers, anything that really slows you down and stops you. It was amazing. You can either make 2 choices. You can either decide to go through it, and that involves planning. It involves figuring out which way you're going and what are you going to do and how are you going to pull this off and who are you going to ask to help. Or you can just sit down and kind of wallow in it. But I'll always remember when I had that decision came to me, and it was like, it was a Sunday morning, and I had just gotten back from Cincinnati when they had told me that my sight was pretty well gone. It wasn't coming back unless I did some drastic stuff. So that morning I got up, I wasn't at all happy.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah, couldn't see anything. Just everything was solid white. So I was going to make coffee, and I started looking for stuff. And I couldn't find the stupid basket that the coffee filter and stuff went in. And I started tearing the kitchen up. Emptied this, emptied that, went through all the cabinets, the drawers. I hit my head. I did everything as a freshly blind guy would do. And then after about an hour, I reached into the sink, and it was right there in the part where I would do the dishes. And I just sat down on the floor and started crying. I said, it's either going to be like this or I got to do something. Mm-hmm. And I had always been a believer, but you got to be careful with that, because sometimes people will take that statement and pray all right, I'm going to try this Jesus thing. And they'll pray, and then they'll expect it to be better the next morning. And then when it doesn't, they get mad and they walk away.
Like it's some sort of Jesus pill or something. Here, take this and call me in the morning, you'll be all set.
Yeah, exactly. And one of my most favorite lines in a movie was Outlaw Josie Wells when the old Indian said, "I endeavor to persevere." And I always remember that. And I always remember that morning on the kitchen floor because I had to make a plan. I had to decide, how I was going to work this, and trusting in God was one of my tools that I used, and it takes a while to get there when you're angry. Did you have that problem at first?
Yeah, I have all sorts of problems at first, and that persist, and you just wrestle with it. It is what it is. But you mentioned faith and trusting God, and actually. One of the first things they teach you in Bible college, at least the Bible college I went to, and it's kind of funny because, they get away from it somewhere after that class. But that, when it comes to interpreting Scripture, that it can't mean something different today than it meant at the time it was written to the people to whom it was written.
Right.
And of course, it's a Hebrew, Jewish, whatever you want to call it, a centric book. I mean, Jesus is the King of the Jews, and most of the New Covenant were Jews before Paul started reaching out to the Gentiles, and then of course 90% probably of the Old Covenant all Jewish as well. So you have to look at it from that perspective. So the word that we always talk about as faith really is kind of it's an okay translation, but it's really not at all correct. It really is. The word is emunah, and it's a Hebrew word that more closely matches the word trust. So every place you see faith in the Bible, just about, you could throw that out and replace it with trust.
Right.
So yeah, it is about trusting. It's who's driving. If it's me that's driving, if it's me that's in control, exactly. Just as in the physical realm, I go out and get behind my wife's lovely Subaru that she likes pretty well, and even though it's a few years old, it's pretty nice. And if I were to take the keys and pull out of the driveway, I might make it onto our street, but I'm not going to make it much past getting onto the street before I wreck and get out of control. And that's very much how life is in general. When you're truthful, I think whether you have a disability or not, you realize pretty quickly we're not in control.
No.
I mean, you look at I was praying yesterday, and it's kind of an interesting observation that when we're asked God to move on our behalf, it's like. It's good to remind him, not because he's forgetful, but he likes it when his word.
Right.
And you see how, kings and pharaohs and even Pontius Pilate himself, these are men that had their own will and certainly could have done whatever they wanted, yet God turns the hearts of men, causes them to do his will and even say the words that God wants them to say at the right time. So, and not that we are just puppets or anything like that, but God certainly is supreme and sovereign. He can do what he wants. So the idea that I'm in control in any way, shape, or form, and not to ever use it as a blame thing. Well, I'm not in control, so this is what happened. But no, I look at it this way. Yes, we're in control. We make decisions. We have consequences to endure. I want to make that clear, just in case I'm going off on a coffee tangent. I want to make it clear that we are in control in the sense that we have to make choices. We have to make decisions. But ultimately, even when we goof up, is kind of what I'm getting at, is ultimately God is in control, and all things work together for good for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purposes is the complete statement.
Right.
And certainly you and I love the Lord and are called according to his purposes, and hopefully everyone watching right now is as well. And if you're not, we can fix that. That's another issue we can deal with. Hit us up an email. We'll let you know how. But we get to that point where we realize I'm going to do my best. I'm going to learn. I'm going to study. I'm going to grow. I'm going to overcome what needs to be overcome. But ultimately, I have to trust God enough to know that He is in control, ultimately. So even when I goof up, it's all is not lost. Because I wrote a whole book about it. All the mess ups and failures in my life that left me on my grandmother's couch at age 26. Essentially homeless. Not that I was ever in the street, but I had lost everything and marriage at the time and all kinds of just terrible things that happened. And I was blind and losing my sight and, all these other things. And I just felt like a complete failure. How can God ever use me? How could anybody
use you?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a long process. And you basically just hit, because I used to be a recovery pastor. I ran a Celebrate Recovery thing, and you just hit the first three steps / principles of the whole recovery thing. One is realizing that, hey, I'm powerless. I can't do anything by myself. And then you have to start thinking and praying and discovering that, there is a God that can help me. But then how is that going to work? What do I have to do? You can pray, and that's the great start, and you can decide that He's going to drive. But that, now God can heal. I've seen that happen. But in most cases, we've been taught that things get so much better when you become a Christian, but that can really cause problems for a lot of folks, because usually life gets a little more confusing because it's time to start sweeping away and clearing and looking at the real issues. So the second thing is you finally have to, you realize that God's in charge. And the third one is one of the steps of my getting better, one of the steps of making life more tolerable is to turn your life and over to God's care and control. But, there's a long process, and you really need to sit and discern what the real problems are, what choices I've made that have kind of gotten me where I'm at, what choices were out of my control. Because everybody has, some people have things that have caused them problems that they were not responsible for: abuse, poverty, health. So you really have it's really a long process, and that's where this perseverance thing comes in.
Well, I know we are shockingly racing towards the end of our time here already, which is why this is going to be a multi-part series, and we may take a week off next week because we'll be sprinkling this topic in as we go along, but we want to be timely with the season. So next week, if all goes well, God willing and the creek don't rise, as they say down south, we want to do a Hanukkah special.
Yeah.
And wait a minute, I thought this was Christian Life Insights. What's this Jewish stuff? Well, you'll have to come back next week and find out, because here's the thing. We firmly believe, or I'll speak for myself, I firmly believe that if we are to be Christ followers, what does that mean? We're supposed to do what He did, observe what He observed, live how He lived, and He was Jewish, and He certainly observed Hanukkah, and Luke, as a matter of fact, chronicles that, and we're going to show you some things you probably never saw next week that you can apply to your life, and will be very eye-opening, to use a couple of blindisms, eye-opening and make you see, get it? And then I guess 2 weeks after that, we'll have a Christmas special of some sort. We're going to dress Greg up as a little elf or something. I'm not sure.
I'm looking forward to that. But the thing is, you'll never know what I'm wearing.
Yeah, exactly. Again,
there is that.
All comes down to camo, brother, camo. But we're going to be back and talk about this some more in probably 2 weeks. So make sure you don't miss a thing, because there's so much more. We're going to talk about, suffering and perseverance and how the sufferings of this life actually are meaningful. And yes, accepting Jesus and becoming a Christian is a quick fix for the eternal. But we still have between here and there that we have to grow and get through. So
all about discerning where you are and what you have to really start changing and thinking about how to get out of the situations that are really causing you to be hung up. And
absolutely. Greg, it's good having you back this week. It was not as much fun last week flying solo, but Listen, make sure you subscribe to this channel, Two Blind Crew. Follow us on Facebook at Two Blind Crew and Twitter at Two Blind Crew as well. Make sure you tell a friend, subscribe, click the
Please.
like button, and let's promote the snot out of this thing. Is that proper to say? I don't know. I guess
think
I just did.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you say that? Can you say snot on there?
It's not funny. It's so immature.
It is immature.
God bless.
Bye.
Thanks for spending time with us at Two Blind Crew. On behalf of my daddy Jeff and Greg Greg McLaughlin, be sure to stop by our website, twoblindcrew.com. Follow us on Twitter at Two Blind Crew, and like us on Facebook. See you next time. Can I have my money now? I'm serious. I want my money now. Mom!